My name is Emily, and I'm 34. I've been living a quiet life abroad, teaching art history, holding tight to the Virginia farmhouse my grandmother left me. It's worth $9 million a piece of my heart. Then my younger brother Caleb called. He sold it for just $3 million to fund his girlfriend's failing boutique. I was gutted, betrayed by my own blood. But when I rushed home, I couldn't stop laughing. The farmhouse he sold. It wasn't what he thought. Where are you watching from? Like and subscribe to hear the whole story. I was still reeling from Caleb's call, his voice shaky as he admitted selling my farmhouse. Lisbon's morning light spilled through my apartment window, but it felt dim. Emily, 34, teaching art history at a small university here, trying to build a life far from Virginia's chaos. That farmhouse wasn't just property. It was my grandmother Clara's gift, a 200-year-old haven where I found peace. She raised Caleb and me after our parents split her stories, filling the attic, where I painted her laughter echoing in the orchard where Caleb ran wild. I couldn't sit still. My hands trembled as I opened my laptop, hoping it was a mistake. An email from Allison, a realtor back home, stopped my heart. Congrats on the farmhouse sale. Quick turnaround. Let me know if you need help with the next steps. My stomach dropped. I hadn't sold anything. Allison and I went to high school together, shared secrets over milkshakes at the diner. She wouldn't lie. But why did she think I'd approved this? I called Caleb, pacing my tiny kitchen. The phone rang 5 times before he picked up. It's early, he mumbled, voice thick with sleep or guilt. What's up, Caleb? What did you do? My voice cracked. Allison says the farmhouse sold. I didn't sign anything. Tell me this isn't real. He went quiet, the kind of silence that screams trouble. I was going to tell you, he finally said. Tara's business was tanking. I had to help her. You weren't even using the place. Help her. By selling my house. I gripped the counter, knuckles white. That's our family's home, Caleb. Grandma's home. How could you? It's just a house, Em, he said, like it was nothing. I got $3 million. That's enough, right? Enough, I wanted to scream. The farmhouse was worth $9 million appraised last year. He didn't even know what he'd thrown away. How did you do this? I own it, not you. I handled it, he said, dodging. Look, I'm sorry. Okay, I'll explain later. He hung up, leaving me staring at the phone, my chest tight. I sank onto a stool, memories flooding in. Clara teaching me to mix paints in the attic, her hands steady on mine. Caleb, barely 10, promising he'd fix the porch swing one day. We were kids, tied to that house, to each other. After the divorce, Mom favored Caleb, leaving me to cling to Clara's warmth. That farmhouse was my anchor, the one thing I could trust. And now it was gone. I called Allison, my voice shaking, but firm. Allison, it's Emily. The farmhouse sale wasn't me. I didn't authorize anything. Oh, Emily, I'm so sorry, she said, her voice soft with shock. Caleb brought in signed papers. He said you were in a bind overseas and needed the cash fast. I should have checked with you. Signed papers, my name forged. My own brother. I felt sick, not just from the betrayal, but from knowing Allison, our old friend, had seen this unfold. My family's mess was spilling out and I couldn't hide it. What happened to the money? I asked, dreading the answer. Caleb handled the funds, she said. I assumed it went to you. The buyers closed last week. They're moving in soon. I thanked her, hung up, and stared at my apartment walls, covered in sketches of the farmhouse's rolling fields. I'd planned to spend next summer there, maybe start a small art retreat. Now I booked a flight to Virginia, my hands shaking as I packed. I needed to see the farmhouse to understand how Caleb could do this. But deep down, I already knew he'd always been reckless, chasing dreams that burned out fast. Tara, his new girlfriend, was just the latest spark. On the plane, I couldn't sleep. I kept picturing Caleb as a kid, his gap-toothed grin as we raced through the orchard. He wasn't a bad person, just lost. But this was different. He'd crossed a line, and I didn't know if I could forgive him. As the plane descended, my heart raced. I wasn't just going home to fight for a house. I was facing the brother I thought I knew, and the truth of what he'd become. The Virginia air hit me like a memory when I stepped off the plane, thick with summer heat and the scent of cut grass. I rented a car and drove straight to the farmhouse, my hands tight on the wheel. I needed to see it to stand on that creaky porch and feel its reality. But as I turned down the gravel road, my breath caught. A bright red sold sign stabbed into the front lawn, swaying in the breeze. My chest tightened. This was real. I parked and stared at the house, its white clapboard walls glowing under the midday sun. The rose bushes Clara planted still lined the path, but a moving truck sat in the driveway, strangers carrying boxes inside. My house, my home, was already someone else's. I wanted to scream, to run up and tell them it was a mistake, but my legs felt heavy, rooted to the spot. A man in a flannel shirt waved from the porch, his smile warm. "You must be a neighbor." "I'm Greg. This is Sheila." A woman with kind eyes joined him, wiping her hands on a dish towel. "We just closed on this beauty. Moving in today." I forced a smile, my throat dry. "I'm Emily. I used to live here." The words tasted bitter. Greg's face softened, like he sensed something was off, but Sheila invited me in for iced tea, their excitement so genuine it hurt. Inside, the hardwood floors still creaked the same, but their furniture, modern, sleek, felt wrong against Clara's faded wallpaper. I sipped the tea, barely tasting it, as they talked about their plans, a guest room, a garden, a life they'd dreamed of. I nodded, my heart sinking. They didn't know Caleb had stolen this from me. "I'm sorry," I said, standing abruptly. "I need to go." Sheila frowned, but Greg just nodded like he understood grief when he saw it. I drove to Caleb's apartment in town, my anger building with every mile. He lived in a rundown complex, the kind with peeling paint and broken blinds. I banged on his door, my knuckles stinging. Tara answered. Her hair pulled tight in a bun, her lips curled in a half smile. "Emily, wow. You didn't have to fly all the way here." Her voice dripped with fake concern, and I hated how she stood in the doorway like she owned the place. "Where's Caleb?" I pushed past her, my voice sharp. The apartment smelled like cheap candles and stale coffee. Caleb was on the couch, scrolling his phone, looking smaller than I remembered. He glanced up, his eyes wide, like a kid caught sneaking cookies. "Em, I didn't think you'd come," he said, standing. "Can we talk about this calmly?" "Calmly?" I laughed, but it sounded hollow. "You forged my name? Caleb, you sold our grandmother's house for pennies and gave the money to her." I pointed at Tara, who rolled her eyes. It wasn't like that. Tara cut in, crossing her arms. "My boutique was going under. Caleb saved it. You were off in Europe, not even using that house. We did you a favor." "A favor?" My voice shook. "That was my home, Tara. My future. You don't get to decide what I need." I turned to Caleb, searching his face for the brother I used to know. "Why didn't you ask me? Why lie?" He rubbed his neck, avoiding my eyes. "I owed some people, okay, not just Tara. I got into some trouble. The sale fixed it. I thought you'd understand. Trouble. My stomach twisted. What kind of trouble? Does it matter? Tara snapped. It's done. The money's gone, and my business is back on track. You're not getting that house back, so move on. I stared at Caleb, waiting for him to defend me, to say something, anything. But he just looked at the floor, his silence louder than any words. I felt a sharp pang, not just anger, but pity. He'd always been the charming one, the one who could talk his way out of anything. But now, he was stuck tied to Tara, to his mistakes. I walked out, my hands shaking as I climbed into the car. The drive back to my hotel was a blur, my mind racing. Caleb hadn't just sold the farmhouse. He'd gambled it away, not just for Tara, but to cover his own debts. I pictured Clara's face, her gentle smile, as she handed me the deed years ago, trusting me to keep our family's heart alive. I'd failed her. And Caleb, he'd thrown it all away without a second thought. As I lay in the hotel bed, staring at the ceiling, I knew this wasn't over. The hurt was just beginning, and I wasn't sure how much more I could take. The hotel room felt like a cage, its beige walls closing in as I sat on the bed, Caleb's silence still ringing in my ears. I'm Emily, 34, and I'd come back to Virginia to reclaim my grandmother's farmhouse, only to find my brother had sold it out from under me. His excuses. Tara's business, his debts cut deep, but I wasn't done. I needed answers, and I needed to fight. I grabbed my keys and drove to meet Diane, a lawyer recommended by a colleague back in Lisbon. Diane's office was a small brick building downtown, cluttered with files and coffee mugs. She leaned across her desk, her glasses slipping down her nose. Emily, I've looked at the documents. Caleb forged your signature, no question. It's fraud, but undoing the sale won't be easy. The buyers have a legal claim now, and it'll cost you to fight it. How much, I asked, my voice steadier than I felt. Thousands, she said. Maybe tens of thousands. And time. The court moves slow. I nodded, my jaw tight. I didn't have that kind of money, not on a professor's salary, but I couldn't let this go. What else did he do? There's got to be more. Diane flipped through papers. He didn't just sign your name. He met with the realtor, Allison, multiple times, claiming you were desperate for cash. Said you were stuck in Europe, drowning in debt. He spun a whole story. My stomach churned. Caleb hadn't just betrayed me. He'd built a lie around me, made me sound like a failure. I pictured him in Allison's office, charming her with that easy smile, the one that always got him out of trouble. He lied about me to everyone. I said more to myself than Diane. There's more, Diane said, her voice gentle. The sale was rushed. Suspiciously so. I'm digging into Tara's role. She might have pushed him to close fast. I thanked Diane and left my head spinning. I needed air perspective, someone to lean on. Against my better judgment, I drove to my mother's house, a modest ranch-style place on the edge of town. Patricia and I hadn't spoken much since I moved abroad. She'd always favored Caleb, her golden boy, while I was Clara's shadow, the quiet one who didn't need her. But she was still my mom. Maybe she'd see how wrong this was. She answered the door in a faded cardigan, her hair grayer than I remembered. Emily, she said, surprised but not warm. You didn't call. I didn't know where else to go, I said, stepping inside. The living room smelled like lavender and old books, unchanged since my childhood. Caleb sold the farmhouse. My farmhouse. He forged my name. Mom, I need you to talk to him. Patricia sighed, sinking into an armchair. He told me. He was trying to help Tara. She's a nice girl, Emily. They're in love. Why can't you let this go? Let it go. My voice rose sharp. He stole from me. That was Grandma's house, our history. He sold it for $3 million when it's worth $9 million. And he lied about me, said I was broke desperate. You were never here, she said, her eyes narrowing. You left us, moved across the ocean. Caleb stayed. He needed the money more than you. Her words hit like a slap. I stood frozen, the room tilting. You're defending him. He broke the law. Mom, he hurt me. You always made everything about you, she said, her voice cold. Clara spoiled you, gave you that house. Caleb got nothing. He's trying to build a life. Why can't you share? I laughed, bitter and raw. Share? He didn't ask. He stole. And you're okay with that. I turned to leave, my hands shaking. I thought you'd care. Emily, wait, she called, but I was already out the door, the screen slamming behind me. In the car, I gripped the wheel, tears burning my eyes. Patricia's favoritism wasn't new, but hearing it now when I needed her most felt like a fresh wound. Caleb had always been her baby, her excuse for every mistake. And me, I was the one who had to be strong to hold it together. My phone buzzed. A text from Allison. Check the local Facebook group. I'm so sorry. Dread pooled in my gut as I opened the app. There it was, a grainy video posted by Harold, an old neighbor who'd known Clara. Caleb drunk at the town bar, slurring into a phone camera. Emily sitting on that big house doing nothing, he said, his voice loud. She doesn't deserve it. I fixed things for Tara. That's what family does. The comments were brutal. Greedy sister. Poor Caleb. She abandoned that house. My face burned shame, mixing with rage. My brother hadn't just sold my home. He'd turned our town against me, made me the villain in his story. I threw the phone onto the seat, my breath ragged. This wasn't just betrayal anymore. It was war. I drove away from Patricia's house, the sting of her words like salt in a cut. My phone burned a hole in the passenger seat, that video of Caleb's bar rant looping in my mind. I'm Emily, 34, and I thought I'd come back to Virginia to save my grandmother's farmhouse, but now I was drowning in my brother's lies. The town's judgment clung to me heavy as the humid air. I needed to confront Caleb to make him face what he'd done. I pulled up to Tara's boutique, a flashy storefront with neon signs and overpriced dresses in the window. The bell jingled as I walked, in my heart pounding. Caleb was behind the counter sorting receipts while Tara lounged on a velvet chair scrolling her phone. She looked up, her smirk sharp enough to cut glass. Back so soon. You're obsessed, Emily. Where's the money, Caleb? I said, ignoring her, my voice low but steady. $3 million. You said it was for Tara's business, but it's gone. Where is it? Caleb froze, his hands hovering over the receipts. I told you, Em. It went to the boutique. Rent, inventory, all that. Don't lie to me. I stepped closer, my fists clenched. I talked to Diane. The boutique's barely breaking even. You spent it somewhere else. Tell me. Tara laughed, sharp and cold. God, you're dramatic. It's just a house, Emily. Some old pile of wood. Caleb did what he had to. You're not his mom. I spun on her, my anger flaring. Stay out of this, Tara. This is between me and my brother. You got your money, so back off. She stood, her heels clicking on the tile. My money, sweetie. That was our money. Caleb's my partner. He saved my dream. You're just mad because you're not the center of his world anymore. Her words hit harder than I expected, stirring up old insecurities. Caleb had always been the one people loved, the one who could charm a room. I was the quiet sister, the one who stayed out of the way. But this wasn't about jealousy. This was about betrayal. I turned to Caleb, my voice shaking. Is that true? You spent it on her. On trips, cars, whatever she wanted? He looked away, his jaw tight. Not all of it. he muttered. I had debts, okay? Some guys I owed. They were bad news. I paid them off. Then Tara needed the rest. It's gone. I'm sorry. Gone. The word felt like a punch. You blew $3 million on your girlfriend and your mistakes, and you're sorry. Do you know what you took from me? That was Clara's house, Caleb. Our home. You didn't even ask. He flinched, but Tara stepped between us, her eyes blazing. You're so high and mighty, acting like you're the only one who lost something. Caleb's been struggling and you weren't here. You don't get to swoop in and play victim. I wanted to scream to tear the boutique apart, but I stood there, my breath shallow. Caleb wouldn't look at me. His shoulders slumped, like he'd already given up. I felt a wave of nausea, realizing how deep this went. He wasn't just reckless, he was spineless, letting Tara pull his strings while he burned our family's legacy to ash. I left the boutique, the door slamming behind me, and drove to the farmhouse, needing to be close to it, even if it wasn't mine anymore. The sun was setting, casting long shadows over the fields. I parked down the road and walked to the edge of the property, staying out of sight. The lights were on inside, Greg and Sheila moving through their new life, oblivious to the storm Caleb had caused. I sank to the ground, the grass cool against my palms, and let the tears come. I pictured Clara's face, her eyes crinkling when she smiled, handing me a paintbrush in the attic. She'd trusted me to protect this place, to keep it alive for us, for her. I'd let her down, but Caleb had shattered her dream first. And now I was alone with Patricia's accusations, the town's gossip, and Tara's venom piling on top of my grief. I hugged my knees, the weight of it all pressing down, and wondered how much more I could take before I broke. I woke up in my hotel room, my eyes gritty from crying, the weight of Caleb's betrayal heavier than ever. I'm Emily, 34, and I'd hit rock bottom, crushed by Caleb's fraud, Tara's lies, and the looming loss of my grandmother's farmhouse. But sitting there, something shifted. I was done being the victim, done letting Caleb's choices define me. I couldn't undo the pain, but I could fight for what was mine. I took a deep breath and called Diane. Her office was quiet the next morning, the hum of a fan cutting through the silence. I want to void the sale, I said, my voice firm despite the knot in my stomach. Whatever it takes, I'm getting the farmhouse back. Diane nodded, scribbling notes. We'll file to nullify the sale based on the invalid deed and forgery. I've got evidence of Tara's fake emails, too. But Emily, this means suing Caleb and Tara. And Greg and Sheila, they'll be caught in the crossfire. I swallowed hard, picturing Sheila's tearful eyes, Greg's quiet anger. Can we help them? Cover their losses somehow? We can try, Diane said. Offer to reimburse their renovation costs if they agree to vacate. It's not perfect, but it's fair. I'll draft a proposal. I left her office, a spark of purpose flickering inside me. For the first time in weeks, I wasn't just reacting. I was choosing my path, but I needed allies. I called Allison, the realtor, who answered with a hesitant Emily. I'm so sorry about everything. I need your help, I said, cutting through her guilt. You saw Caleb's lies firsthand. Will you testify? Tell the court what he did? She paused, then said, Yes. I should have questioned him more. I'll do whatever you need. Her promise steadied me, but the weight of the fight was still heavy. I drove to a small counseling center in town, a place I'd found online, desperate to untangle the storm in my head. Rachel, the therapist, had a warm voice and sharp eyes, like she could see through my walls. I sat across from her, clutching a paper cup of tea, and let it spill out. Caleb's betrayal, Patricia's rejection, the town's judgment. Why do I feel guilty? I asked, my voice cracking. He stole from me, but I'm the one carrying this. Rachel leaned forward. You've been holding his mistakes for years, Emily. It's not your job to fix him. What do you want? Not for Caleb, not for your mom, for you. I stared at the floor, her questions sinking in. I want my home back, I said finally. Not just the farmhouse, but what it means. Clara trusted me to protect it. I want to honor that. Then start there, Rachel said. Take one step toward that goal. Let the guilt go. It's not yours. Her words stuck with me like a lifeline. That night, alone in my hotel room, I pulled out a notebook and started writing a letter to Caleb, not to send, but to free myself. You broke my trust. I wrote my pen, digging into the paper. You took Clara's dream and threw it away. I loved you, but I can't carry your choices anymore. Each word felt like shedding a weight, clearing space for something new. The next morning, I called Natalie, my cousin, who'd recorded that awful dinner. I need everything you have, I said. Texts, videos, anything showing Caleb's lies. I've got you, she said, her voice fierce. He sent me messages last month bragging about how he'd handled the farmhouse deal. Said you didn't care about it, that you were too busy in Europe. I'll send them over. Her support was a spark fanning the fire inside me. I opened my laptop and started an email to Marcus, the journalist. I'll talk, I wrote. But this is my story, not Caleb's. I want the truth out there. I hit send, my heart racing. I wasn't hiding anymore. I was stepping into the light, ready to fight for Clara's legacy, for myself. The road ahead was long, but I was moving, and that was enough. The morning sun slanted through the hotel blinds, catching the pages of my notebook where I'd poured out my hurt to Caleb. I'm Emily, 34, and I'd decided to fight for my grandmother's farmhouse, no longer letting my brother's lies bury me. Sending that email to Marcus, lining up Allison's testimony and leaning on Natalie's evidence felt like steps forward. But I needed to do more. I was ready to take back my story, to rebuild what Caleb had broken. I met Greg and Sheila at a diner across town, its vinyl booths and coffee-stained counters a far cry from the farmhouse's warmth. They sat across from me, their faces tight with worry, but I held my ground. I'm fighting to void the sale, I said, my voice steady. The deed was invalid and Caleb lied to you. But I don't want you to lose everything. I'll cover your renovation costs if you agree to move out. Sheila's eyes softened, but Greg frowned. His hands clasped tight. That's generous, Emily, but we've built a life here. Our kids love the yard. We took out loans. What happens to us, I don't know yet. I admitted, my chest aching. But I'll work with my lawyer to make this right. You deserve better than Caleb's mess. They nodded, hesitant but open, and I felt a flicker of relief. I wasn't just fighting for me. I was trying to fix what I could for them too. Back at the hotel, I called Diane to push the lawsuit forward. Tara's emails are damning, she said. She posed as you to rush the realtor. We've got a strong case against her and Caleb. The first hearing's next week. Good, I said, my resolve hardening. Let's hit them with everything. I hung up, feeling a surge of control, like I was finally steering my own ship. But I needed to ground myself to channel this energy. I pulled out my sketch pad, untouched since Lisbon, and started drawing the farmhouse not as it was now, but as I remembered it, with Clara's roses blooming wild. The pencil moved fast, each stroke a release away to reclaim what I'd lost. That afternoon, I met Allison at a park, the air thick with the scent of pine. She handed me a folder of emails and notes from her meetings with Caleb. He was so convincing, she said, her voice heavy with regret. Kept saying you were in trouble, that the sale was your idea. I feel awful, Emily. You're helping now, I said, squeezing her arm. That's what matters. Her willingness to testify was a lifeline, proof I wasn't alone in this fight. As we parted, I felt a spark of gratitude. a reminder that not everyone had turned against me. Later, I attended the first court hearing, a sterile room with flickering lights and a judge who barely looked up. Caleb sat across the aisle, his tie crooked, avoiding my gaze. Tara wasn't there, but her absence felt calculated, like she was dodging the fallout. Diane presented the forged documents, her voice sharp, as she outlined Caleb's lies. The judge nodded, scheduling a full trial, and I caught Caleb's eye as we left. He looked small, deflated, but I didn't soften. He'd made his choices. That evening, I sat on the hotel balcony, the town's lights twinkling below. I opened my laptop and posted my farmhouse sketch online, not to boast, but to share something real. "This is my home," I wrote. "It's worth fighting for." To my surprise, comments poured in, neighbors, old friends, even strangers offering support. "Keep going, Emily. Don't let him win." Their words wrapped around me, a shield against the pain. I met Natalie for coffee the next day, her eyes bright with defiance. "Caleb's scared," she said, sliding her phone across the table. "Look at these texts. He's begging me not to help you, saying you're ruining his life." I read them, my heart cold. He hadn't learned, hadn't changed. But I had. As I walked back to the hotel, my sketch pad tucked under my arm, I passed a mural on a brick wall, vibrant and bold. It reminded me of Clara, of her courage. I stopped, my breath steady, and made a quiet promise to her, to myself. I'd fight for the farmhouse, for the truth, no matter how long it took. I didn't need to shout or rage. I just needed to keep moving forward, one deliberate step at a time. I turned toward the hotel, my shoulders squared, and felt the weight of my own strength settle into place. The courtroom's echo faded, but my resolve didn't. I'm Emily, 34, and I'd fought to reclaim my grandmother's farmhouse, filing a lawsuit against Caleb and Tara, offering Greg and Sheila a way out. My sketch of the farmhouse shared online had sparked unexpected support, and I felt stronger, grounded. But now the consequences were rolling in, and they weren't all what I'd expected. I sat in my hotel room, the morning light pale, when Diane called with news that changed everything. "The judge ruled in our favor," she said, her voice crisp. "The sale's voided. The farmhouse is yours again, Emily. Caleb's facing forgery charges, and Tara's under investigation for her emails." I exhaled, my hands trembling. "It's mine." The words felt unreal, like a dream I didn't trust. "What about Greg and Sheila?" "They accepted your offer," Diane said. "They'll vacate next month, and you'll cover their renovation costs. They're upset, but they're cooperating." Relief washed over me, tinged with guilt. I'd won, but at a cost. I pictured Sheila packing boxes, Greg explaining to their kids why they had to leave. I'd tried to make it right, but their loss was real. I thanked Diane and hung up, staring at the sketch pad on my desk. The farmhouse was mine, but it didn't feel like victory, not yet. I drove to the farmhouse, needing to see it to believe it. The sold sign was gone, the driveway empty. I walked the front path, the crunch of gravel loud in the quiet. The porch steps creaked under my weight, and I touched the doorframe, imagining Clara's hand there, steady and warm. Inside, the air was stale. Greg and Sheila's belongings cleared out. The walls were bare, the silence heavy. I stood in the kitchen where Clara used to hum while baking and felt a strange ache. I'd fought for this place, but it felt hollow without her. My phone rang, shattering the quiet. It was Caleb, his voice hoarse. "Em, I heard the ruling. You got the house back. I'm sorry. I messed up bad." I gripped the phone, my throat tight. Sorry doesn't fix this, Caleb. You lied, you stole, and now you're facing charges. Why call me now? I don't know, he said, his voice breaking. Tara's gone. She took what was left of the boutique money and left me. I've got nothing, Em. I just wanted you to know I didn't mean to hurt you. His words stirred a flicker of pity, but it wasn't enough. You didn't mean to, I said, my voice low. You trashed my name, Caleb. You let Tara use you, and you broke everything Clara built. I can't help you out of this. I know, he whispered. I'm scared. He hung up, and I stood frozen, the phone still in my hand. Caleb, the brother who'd once built forts with me in the orchard, was crumbling. But I couldn't carry his regret. Not anymore. I walked to the attic where I used to paint with Clara and sat on the dusty floor. My victory felt fragile, overshadowed by the cost. Then my phone buzzed with a text from Patricia. You've gone too far, Emily. Caleb's in trouble because of you. Don't come around anymore. Her words were a blade, clean and sharp. My mother choosing him again, cutting me out like I was the problem. I leaned against the attic wall, my breath shallow. The farmhouse was mine, but my family was gone. Caleb's charges, Tara's betrayal, Patricia's rejection. They were the price of my fight. I'd wanted justice, but this felt like a Pyrrhic win, leaving me alone in a house that echoed with ghosts. I closed my eyes, the weight of it all settling in, and wondered if I'd fought for the right thing after all. The attic's silence pressed against me, Patricia's text still burning in my mind. I'm Emily, 34, and I'd won back my grandmother's farmhouse, but the cost was steep: Caleb's charges, Tara's exit, and my mother's rejection. I stood brushing dust from my jeans and walked downstairs, the farmhouse's empty rooms, a mirror to the hollow ache inside. I needed to rebuild, but the weight of what I'd lost kept pulling me under. I moved back into the farmhouse the next week, hauling boxes from storage, each one a reminder of the life I'd left in Lisbon. The pipes groaned, the windows rattled, but I welcomed the work. Lucas, a childhood friend who'd resurfaced, showed up with a toolbox, his easy grin a quiet comfort. This place needs love, he said, prying loose a warped board on the porch. Let's start here. We worked in rhythm, sanding and painting, the scrape of sandpaper filling the silence. Lucas didn't ask about Caleb or the lawsuit, and I was grateful, but the town wasn't so kind. My mailbox filled with letters, some supportive, others venomous. You ruined your brother. One read the handwriting, shaky but sharp. Family doesn't do this. I burned it in the backyard, the flames curling the paper to ash, but the words lingered. Caleb's sentencing came a week later, a gray morning that matched my mood. I sat in the courtroom's back row, my hands clasped tight. He stood before the judge, his shoulders slumped, pleading guilty to forgery. The judge ordered probation and restitution, thousands he'd have to pay me over years. His eyes found mine as he left, not angry, but empty, like he'd lost more than the case. I looked away, my throat tight, unable to meet that gaze. Outside, a woman approached, her face familiar, but older. Evelyn, a local historian who'd known Clara. I heard you got the farmhouse back, she said, her voice soft. It's a treasure, Emily. I'd love to help document its history, keep it alive. Her offer caught me off guard, a small light in the dark. I'd like that. I said, my voice barely above a whisper. We parted, and I drove home, Evelyn's words stirring something fragile. But when I checked my phone, a new message from Marcus, the journalist, stopped me cold. His article had gone viral, picked up by a regional paper. Local woman reclaims family home in fraud scandal. It read with quotes from neighbors, some calling me brave, others cruel. The attention was a spotlight I hadn't wanted, and it brought strangers to my door, some with donations, others with questions I couldn't answer. I stood in the farmhouse's living room, the walls still bare, and felt the world pressing in. Lucas knocked, carrying a can of paint. "You okay?" he asked, his eyes searching mine. "No." I admitted, my voice flat. "I got what I wanted, but it's not enough. My family's gone, the town's talking, and this house, it's just a shell." He set the can down, his hand brushing mine, brief but steady. "It's not a shell. It's yours. You're bringing it back." His words were simple, but they didn't fill the void. I nodded, turning away, my gaze falling on a loose floorboard in the corner. I pried it up, curious, and found a small tin box rusted at the edges. Inside was Clara's diary, its pages brittle but intact, her handwriting a familiar curl. I sat on the floor, reading her words, stories of her own family, fights, her brother's betrayal over land, her choice to forgive but never forget. "Strength isn't in winning," she wrote. "It's in standing tall when everything falls." My eyes stung, her voice so clear it hurt. I'd fought like she had, but the victory felt thin, overshadowed by the fractures I couldn't mend. I closed the diary, my fingers tracing its cover, and sat in the quiet, the weight of my choices settling like dust, heavy and still. The orchard's quiet lingered in me, a steady pulse beneath the weight of everything I'd carried. I'm Emily, 34, and the farmhouse was mine again, transformed into a space for art and healing. Caleb's letter, Lucas's support, and the kids' laughter had softened the edges of my hurt. But I wasn't chasing closure anymore. I was learning to live with the cracks, to let them be part of the story without defining it. I organized an open house, inviting the town to see the farmhouse reborn. The living room glowed with string lights, tables covered in sketches and cookies. Evelyn, the historian, set up a display of old photos, her voice warm as she shared stories of the house's past. Neighbors wandered through, some hesitant, others smiling, their chatter a soft hum. Allison came, her hug quick but genuine. "You've done something special here," she said, her eyes bright. I nodded, grateful, feeling the house breathe with life. Lucas surprised me with a gift, a barn door he'd restored, its wood polished to a deep sheen, hinges gleaming. "Thought it'd fit the studio," he said, leaning it against the wall. His hands lingered on the frame, and I caught a flicker in his gaze, something unspoken but warm. "Thank you," I said, my voice soft, sensing a door of my own creaking open, one I wasn't ready to name. I met with Rachel, my therapist, the next day, sitting in her cozy office with its mismatched pillows. "I don't hate Caleb anymore," I said, tracing the rim of my coffee mug. "I'm not sure what I feel, but it's not anger." "Is that enough?" Rachel smiled, her eyes kind. "It's a start. You're not carrying his choices now. You're carrying yours. What do you want to build next?" Her question settled in me, simple but vast. I thought of the farmhouse, of Mia's river painting, of Lucas's quiet steadiness. "Something honest," I said finally. "Something that lasts." Back home, I got a call from Diane. "Caleb's started restitution payments," she said. "Small amounts, but it's something. The case is winding down." I thanked her. The news, a faint ripple, not a wave. Caleb was trying, but I didn't need his effort to feel whole. I was finding that on my own. I decided to paint a mural on the farmhouse's side, a sweeping scene of fields and sky rooted in Clara's love for this place. I worked late into the evenings, my brush steady, the colors blending under starlight. Neighbors stopped to watch, some leaving notes of encouragement taped to my mailbox. The mural grew bold and alive, a testament to what I'd held on to, what I'd built. One afternoon, Patricia showed up unannounced, standing in the driveway. her coat buttoned tight against the fall chill. "I came to see the mural," she said, her voice careful, like she was testing the air. We walked to it in silence, her eyes tracing the painted hills. "It's beautiful," she said, almost a whisper. "Clara would have loved it." I nodded, my throat tight but calm. "I think so too." We didn't hug, didn't apologize, but her presence was enough. A small bridge we might cross later. She left without another word, and I stood by the mural, the paint still tacky under my fingers. That night, I sat in the studio, the house quiet around me. I opened a new canvas, not planning, just letting my brush move. The strokes were loose, unformed, but they felt like mine. I didn't need to fix everything, my family, my past, or even myself. I just needed to keep painting, to keep showing up. The world outside softened, the stars bright through the window, and I let out a slow breath, feeling the weight of the fight slip away, leaving only the promise of tomorrow. The farmhouse had become my center, a place where I could stand firm. I'm Emily, 34, and I'd rebuilt my life here, weaving art community and quiet mornings into something solid. Caleb's tentative steps, Patricia's slow return, and Lucas's steady presence were threads in a new tapestry. But the real change was in me. I wasn't chasing repair anymore. I was living, and that was enough. One crisp fall day, we held a festival to celebrate the farmhouse's new status as a historical site, thanks to Evelyn's work. The yard buzzed with neighbors' kids running through a hay maze and local musicians strumming under a tent. I moved through the crowd, handing out cider, catching smiles from people who'd once whispered about me. The mural glowed in the sunlight, a beacon of what this place had endured, what I had. Lucas found me by the food table, his grin easy. "You pulled this off, Em. Look at this place." I laughed, lighter than I'd felt in years. "We did. Couldn't have done it without you." His eyes held mine a beat longer, a warmth there I didn't shy from. I wasn't ready to name it, but I wasn't afraid of it either. Evelyn gathered everyone for a ceremony, unveiling a plaque by the front door. Clara's house est. 1820. As she spoke of the farmhouse's history, I slipped away to the attic, needing a moment alone. I sat on the floor, pulling out a wooden box I'd prepared, a time capsule for the festival. Inside, I placed Clara's diary, its pages worn but precious, and my own journal filled with sketches and thoughts from the past year. I sealed it, knowing it would be buried in the yard, a gift to the future. Back outside, I rejoined the crowd as Evelyn invited people to add notes to the capsule. Mia, the girl from my art class, tucked in a drawing of a tree, her eyes bright. "It's for whoever lives here next," she said. I nodded, my throat tight, seeing Clara in her quiet courage. The capsule was buried under an oak, the earth soft and welcoming, and I felt a weight lift, like I'd given something back to time. That night, alone in the kitchen, I lit a candle, its flicker casting shadows on the walls. I thought about Caleb working his way through restitution, and Patricia trying in her own flawed way. I thought about the farmhouse, how it had held me through the worst, and now stood stronger. The lesson wasn't loud or grand. It was, this pain doesn't define you unless you let it. You can carry hurt and still choose to build, to love, to let go. I'd learned to hold my own heart gently, to forgive myself first, and that had changed everything. What's a moment that broke you open but taught you to keep going? Share it below. I'd love to hear your story. If this journey resonated, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need it. Thank you for being here, for listening. Here's to healing, to new beginnings, and to carrying on with grace.